right now where we are in the world, we really need to work together. And so we have all kinds of folks trying to work together, trying to work against this battle or win that battle or build this community and break down and dismantle, communities that aren't serving us. But what gets in the way every time is race.
There's unconscious bias that's built into our brains because we have really, as human beings, for hundreds and thousands of years, absorbed messages about who belongs at the top of the racial hierarchy and who belongs at the bottom.
I was born in Medford, Oregon, and in Medford there were absolutely no people of color within the city limits. So we're 11 years old and I meet another person who then becomes my best friend, and she still is my best friend. And her name was Serena Maria Cruz, right? So Serena, for me, wasn't of color. She was white. So we're graduating, we're signing up for the PSAT to take the test, and this is where we've gone to school together for 5 or 6 years, and we've been to each other's houses, we've had birthday parties, we're all involved in the same gifted program activities, and she's filling out her form and filling out her race. And I'm filling out my form, and I look over at Serena and I see her filling out the bubble for Hispanic. And so I actually reach out and I grab her hand and I pull it up and I tell her, Serena, you're supposed to fill out the white bubble. And she looks at me and she says, look at me, Susie. She says, look at me, like this. And I looked at her and I didn't have any clue what she was talking about. I didn't know what she was talking about. And when I look back now, right, and I think about entitlement, it's hard for me to even locate where racial entitlement is because everything about my life has been entitlement.
When I use the term codes of power, I'm foremost talking about the reality that culture informs everything that we do. And that most white people, because we live in a country where we see ourselves everywhere in every way, and our culture is validated everywhere and in every way, we don't understand how our cultural values are brought into the classroom. So when a white boy walks in the room, we understand him. We have similar cultural values. We understand how to behave, how to talk, how to respond to one another. If I'm a white woman and he's a white boy, he can see me as his mother. I can see him as my child. That positions him to know not only that he's right in the world, but that he deserves to feel comfortable and that he is really claiming his rightful place in the world to be a leader. A white boy who walks in the room and is animated and moving around and maybe even a little cheeky is smart. And isn't he smart? Isn't he cheeky? He's almost looked at as, well, boys will be boys. A boy of color, especially an African American boy who walks in the room exhibiting the same behavior, walks in and it's, I might need to keep an eye on him. And that, I really believe, is our internalized racism, that we are afraid of these young boys. And I'm talking young boys, 4 years old and above. And that instead of the teacher looking at him or herself and saying, what is going on with me? That this same behavior creates fear in me instead of admiration. We pathologize the boy of color.
I travel all the time. If I'm in an airport, I've seen folks, particularly who could be perceived as being from the so-called Middle East, who could be perceived as potentially Arab or whatnot, or Persian or anything else. How many times I've seen them pulled aside and searched, and it's not that fascinates me so much. It's the reaction of the other travelers that I'm looking for, right? It's the reaction of folks looking at them sort of very nervously, as opposed to when I'm stopped, because I travel enough, occasionally I'm going to get searched. Statistically, that's obviously going to happen. And when I am, what's that experience like? And I pay very close attention, and no one's looking at me. No one is looking at me with that look of, oh crap, I really hope that white dude is not on my plane, right? Nobody's really nervous about that.
When I think of internalized racism, I think of the appropriation by persons of color of the prejudice, bigotry, and stereotypes which are aimed at them.
It's always kind of like climbing up this mountain. Well, maybe if I do this, maybe if I do that. And sometimes not even consciously saying, well, maybe if I do this. It's not like I would consciously say, well, maybe if I just made my hair a little straighter, I would be more accepted.
You start learning, oh, well, if I could be more white, then I could be more comfortable, then I can fit in better. There would be people that would come into the flower shop where my mom worked. I would work in there sometimes during high school. And if there was someone that walked in that was, say, Latino, I might help them last, just like the white people do.
I think it's really, as Americans, we still are really not good at seeing a racist impact when there is no apparent racist. We need to really broaden our view so that we can see that if you have had decades, centuries of explicit racism, and then on top of that you lay seemingly race-neutral rules and policies, you're going to get still a churning out of racial disparities, again, even if no one intended to do that. Because that's the way structural racism works, that history matters.